Adam?
Hey there, Mr. Phil.
Phil. I'm trying to figure out where my video is.
Well, it appears to be inside your head.
I took it out of its, took my iPad out of its holder this morning and give it a good clean, so maybe I haven't put it back properly. Hang on.
Hey there.
Yeah. I'll see what I've done, I think. Maybe that's better. Oh, I'll get it right in a minute, Adam.
Wow, that's exciting.
I managed to get our normal Friday business call delayed till 10, so I thought I'd join you today. Oh, there we go. There we go.
There we go.
So it's an interesting question you posed this morning.
Yeah.
Did you see my reply?
I did. There was a couple replies, so I don't remember which one it was. Let me double check here. Actually, I've got a few things I gotta still get ready for, and then I'll talk with you in just a moment when we get going. Hello, Alan. I'm gonna do some preparations, but you guys can chat.
Hey, Alan, how are you?
I'm fine.
I'm always impressed about the great questions you ask on the Wednesday 1 Million Cuts.
Well, you're so kind. Thank you.
Very, very thoughtful and very intriguing. I know when Alan's going to ask a question, I should listen.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you and I are in the kind of the same. You like the strategic field, and so. So I listen when you speak because I know that the question's going to be meaningful.
Well, you know, when you spend some time on the planet, first of all, I'm humbled by how much I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, aren't we all?
And and I've learned to listen much better over the years, to try to get to the heart of the matter. I think people who don't develop their listening skills sometimes pick the wrong thing to talk about, if there's a wrong thing, but they focus on ancillary issues and kind of miss the point.
Yeah, I was rereading this week because I was doing some research for my book. Andy Grove's book on inflection points, and I got a brilliant piece out of there yesterday where he says that you know, the senior managers were plodding along as normal when they had their major inflection point a few years ago, when the Japanese were undercutting them on memories, and and the end result of that was they switched to microprocessors. But he put very succinctly in his book, and I should have brought it in because it's only a short paragraph, that it's amazing how much senior managers in a company like Intel don't know what's going on down with the people that are actually meeting on a regular basis and directing silicon into the most profitable parts of the business without actually going to the CEOs and the presidents and telling them. All right. And he said something along the lines of, so we weren't listening to what they were doing down below. And it took us 3 years of an intense amount of red ink to realize what was going wrong.
When I was in my 20s, I had an illusion that the big corporations were where you could really get stuff done. And over the years, I've worked for a couple of multinational corporations and a number of small organizations. And I realized that the large organizations are so stratified and calcified that it's hard to get anything done. In the small organization where you can just walk into the CEO's office and say, what if? That's where things are dynamic and can really happen.
All right, I'm going to interrupt you guys a little bit, and I'm going to start things. So, because this is also recorded, and so people will know when things start and all that. And I'll go through rigmarole. It's going to be live on YouTube. So it is live right now. If you want to know the link for those people watching right now or on Zoom, there should be a way you can click on. I don't quite know, but there's a spot you click on it, and I'll show you the link. I think it's up in the corner there.
Yeah, if you go, it's on YouTube. If you click on YouTube, it comes up copy streaming link.
Yeah, so if you want to copy that and use it for your own stuff, that's great. I'll edit out this beginning part later, but attendees may use this on your social media. Live will be, and the chat will, if there's anything in the chat that's useful, I'll post it down below eventually too. Right now I'm a bit behind, so I expect that to happen in a week or two. And here we go. Actually, it's not here we go, because I got a plan. This is the plan that we're going to go with. I'm going to do a welcome, and then there's going to be the stuff in bold is the stuff you guys will do with me, which is you'll do your who and what you do, and then we'll respond to the topic, and the discussion could go anywhere from there. I don't care. I just give the topic so that we have a direction if we want it, and I often come back to it. So today we're talking about measuring ROI. And I've animated this, so soon something else should come up, but I might have undone that, so I'll click. Nope, that didn't help either. There it is, there it all is, fine, all at once. Who cares, who wants fancy animation anyway? So the reason that we do, we wanna measure our ROI is because there's certain things we desire to know if our choices are actually making a difference in the way we want them to make a difference. Are we making a difference in the world? Are we making a difference in our family life? Are we making a difference for our own budgets? And the objective is, or it can be objective or it can be subjective. And if you're trying to make it objective, you have to figure out which range of risk you want and becoming comfortable with range. So the objective one, when I talk about measuring, there's a book that I've mentioned a couple times on here, which is called You Can Measure, or How to Measure Anything. And he literally means anything. And he goes through the book and he says one of the big things you have to get accustomed to is talking about ranges. So the less you know about it, the bigger the range of your measurement would be. So that is kind of like some background for the topic. Welcome to Adam's Friday Flow for Entrepreneurs. And if you guys would introduce yourselves, you're going to tell your name, the company, if you have one, what you do and for who you do it. And then we're going to, if you want to paste your business information or contact information in the chat, you can clarify whether you just want people attending to have it, or if you'd like it to be posted, just put it on there and I'll post it with YouTube stuff. So I'll give an example here, and I'm going to close down the presentation so that we can see faces better. I'm Adam Sparks Brechtel. I am working here on site. So I've got this when I'm talking to folks, but I'm working on one of my work sites, or broadcasting from one of my work sites, which is the basement of a family-owned company. And I organize their stuff. So all the stuff behind me, I got to organize. I got to put that way. It was actually the idea of the business owner. Like, this is kind of what he wanted, but he just didn't have the time, or he didn't have the staff that could do it for him. So that's the kind of stuff I get to do. and it has a lot to do with mindset as well. But the physical part is the part that I'm really launching off of right now. I also do virtual coaching and virtual organizing, if that might be interesting. So I'll post my information on the chat. And the way we're going to figure out who goes next is I'm just going to kind of go the people that came in the order you came in. So Phil, you were first, Alan, and I think from my view here, it's Sean, Dave, Lisa, and then Dominic. Okay. And if you forget, I'll try to remind you. Phil.
So Phil Wilton, I have a company that's kind of just dormant holding company at the moment called Strategic Global Group. It was more active when I was in New York than it is in New Mexico, probably because I've still got to get established here. And I am a business strategist. I'm a National Science Foundation mentor. I'm taking Annie, one of the 1 Million Cups ladies, through getting some seed funding at the moment with the National Science Foundation. The $250,000 grant, which can expand up to $1 million. And I'm writing a book on simple strategic planning at the moment, which is kind of completed and is now going through several reams of proofreading with other people. I'm going through paragraph by paragraph to make sure it makes sense. So hopefully I'm going to get that published later this year. Another couple of months to work on it, I think. And I'm putting together a marketing plan on how I'm going to market that book out there and who's going to get hard copies and how I'm going to digitize it and how I'm going to put it out digitally and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Hi, I'm Alan Ramos, and I'm retired. I just cut off what could have been an opportunity to run a new business, but I took the principals through a process, and the process concluded with me advising them that there was no way that they were going to achieve their ends, that the business could be successful, but they were going to be very frustrated. And I advised them to take their money and invest it in something else because they would be very frustrated at the end of a year. So it was kind of an interesting process for me because it was not in my best financial interest to come to that conclusion, but that was the conclusion I came to. Now I've had 6 careers over the years. And there has not been any plan to my life whatsoever. So the word that I use to describe my life is serendipity. So I'm kind of a muse for a couple of colleagues who call me from time to time, and I enjoy that role. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart. But right now I'm just happily living in my bubble, contemplating the world.
We can't hear you, Adam.
Oh, Sean, you're up.
Thanks, Adam. I'm Sean Navin. I've launched 2 businesses concurrently, both of which came from the same place but have nothing to do with each other. The first one is a online merchant apparel store for a small uniform service of the United States that nobody's heard about. And then the second business is a diabetes transformation coaching business. I came from the healthcare industry, saw people suffering from diabetes, which I know is reversible. And so I'm taking it upon myself to help people reverse it through lifestyle intervention. And so those are my 2 businesses.
So the service that you were in led into your diabetes stuff, because we've talked outside of this.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, exactly.
It was good suspense, but I'm going to have you tell them, what is that service and why is it so secretive?
So yeah, it's a one of the 7 uniformed services of the United States. It's called
There's
the United
7.
States.
Oh,
Correct. Well, actually, sorry, there's 8 now, thanks to the Space Force. But yeah, so it's one of the one of the 8 uniformed services is called the United States Public Health Service Commissioned Corps. Most people would know that the Surgeon General is the head, or they wouldn't know that he's the head. They've probably heard of him and have seen his name on cigarette packs and beer bottles, but he's the head of that service. And there's about 6,000 active duty Commissioned Corps officers in that service. And they're usually on, underserved remote areas. And so people never see them. And if they do, they think they're in the Navy because we wear a lot of Navy regalia and uniforms. So
great. I'm wanting to look it up here as I'm talking. Surgeon General Task Force. I don't know.
You could put like public health service. Yeah.
See, it's so mundane. I forget what it is. It's like
Right.
public health service.
Wait,
That just
what is
sounds
that?
just so but you talk. It's like you've got uniforms and everything. Public.
Yeah.
Health.
There you go. The first one.
Okay, commissioned corpse. See, the commissioned corpse makes you sound cooler, and the seal here, that makes you look pretty neat. So I just want to show this because I think this is loading slowly. American. So this is them. They are looking out for us. Look at that. This is real deal. I mean, that's official uniform stuff. That's good.
Yeah, they
All right.
started in 1889.
Oh, okay. So that might be part of it. It's kind of new too. All right. Well, thank
Oh
you
no,
very much.
1889, man. It's old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you, Sean. All right,
of course.
Dominic. Or I see Dominic now instead of Lisa. Lisa, I said you were going to go next. So Lisa.
Good morning. My name is Lisa McGarry. Feels like many years ago. It's only been, 12 years, I guess. So 12 years ago, I started a company with my business partner. Our company is Proficient Financial Management. You have not heard of us because until 3 months ago, we operated solely in Texas. And now I live here in Albuquerque with the rest of you fine folks. What we do, we work with small to mid-sized business owners. We help them in a lot of ways with their tax, with all of their tax compliance. There's so many different tax things you need to worry about when you become a business owner that you never even considered. We help with books, we help with strategic advisory. So, when's a good time to grow? What's a good market to grow into? We also help people who are starting out. I have one of the projects we're working on right now is we have an e-commerce store that's gone gangbusters during quarantine. And so we're actually helping them integrate a variety of different platforms so that their accounting kind of runs itself. And they don't have to do a lot more than make sure that all the numbers are right at the end of the month. So we do all of this for small to mid-sized companies. And basically we manage your finances so you can manage your growth.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. All right, Dominic. All right, I think I might have said on someone else first, but now you're the next person on my screen.
Okay, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I joined the Zoom call on an iPad, so the camera definitely is coming up as opposed to eye level, which is different. Let's see, Dominic Pruitt. I live in Rio Rancho. I grew up in Laguna Pueblo, New Mexico. I live in Rio Rancho because I have high-speed internet here.
Yeah.
And I can't get it out in Laguna. I've worked for IBM for 30 years. For 16 of those years, I was in research and development. And I guess my claim to fame among all that time is producing 26 million consumer PCs in the 1995 to 2000 time range. So Pentium computers, modems, sound cards,
Wow.
did some pretty cool stuff. And then IBM eventually sold that business, and I moved. This was out in Raleigh, North Carolina. So
Oh,
I was away from New Mexico for quite a long time. Went to school in Dallas, got an engineering degree there, and moved back to get closer to New Mexico. And I ended up in Tucson back in 2000. And I primarily was working in the storage area, part of research and development. Touched enterprise storage, touched tape, touched network attached storage, fiber channel storage networks kind of stuff. So,
So
I'm a little.
did you work on the top, like the big things that would have disks moving around that have information on them? Is that kind of storage?
So we have storage that is as big as refrigerators with a bunch of spinning disks back in the day.
Yeah.
Things are getting denser and smaller now.
Solid state.
And I also worked on some prototyping with the robot inside tape libraries. So there's some interesting things back then. But I eventually moved into sales after spending 16 years in product development, and I ended up in an area of sales that is above region, and I'm not tied to any local team, but I am a subject matter expert on 3 different products. Mostly around storage virtualization, storage management, and now storage related to OpenShift, which is the Kubernetes, Docker kind of things that are changing the world right now. And so what I do is I backstop a lot of the technical folks that are on the local teams, and they'll bring me in to talk to their customers. I also conduct labs and workshops to get hands-on time with customers so that they can see and experience some of the paradigm shifts with regard to software-defined storage and how to help a business be more flexible with regard to how they store data and where they replicate it, and how they treat it going from country to country. Because the nice thing about the cloud thing is cloud storage or anything cloud related is you never really know where the data is. Yeah. And things like the Patriot Act and other probably country legislation in other countries like GDPR in Europe definitely affect how and where's data stored nowadays. But I don't want to go on too long, but I moved back to Albuquerque, the Albuquerque area in 2009. Been here for a while, and I guess the most recent thing that I'm pretty proud of and working on is I'm on the board of directors for C&M Ingenuity. So trying to drive a lot of those programs where non-credit classes, non-credit education, just-in-time workforce development, I think is very important for the state. And it's definitely a direction, especially when we're getting into more certifications, badging, credentials that are, very useful, I think, to be applied to certain situations, is a thing that New Mexico really hasn't focused on, and I think C&M Ingenuity brings that to the table there.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where you are now, working with C&M Ingenuity.
Yeah. Go ahead and if you look on where is it? About, probably, I guess. No, not under there. Maybe down a little further. My mug's on there somewhere. They keep changing it.
On these things or in the about?
Yep. Fuse Makerspace is one of the things that we did. We did an acquisition of ABQID recently. I don't know if you guys saw that in the paper.
No.
And we work very closely with the the head of C&M, which is Tracy right now, Tracy Harlicher.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But yeah, with deep dive coding is part of that.
Yeah, I know. Wait, hear them. That's great stuff. Cool.
So yeah, I'm kind of one of the behind the scenes people helping move that along. That's
nifty. So is there any work on bringing high speed out to Laguna? I mean,
Laguna's always had the capacity. They struck an agreement, I think, back then with CenturyLink to have fiber, but the problem is lighting it up, and that equipment's not cheap. And so there's a utility authority out there that provides internet service. I think it competes with the CenturyLink that's out there. And, again, yeah, everything comes down to infrastructure. I mean, I'm in the storage area, but, a lot of people don't think about infrastructure until it's oversaturated or overused or overtaxed. And, a good example of that is, all the virtual meeting here. Yeah, there you go. You can see me in the lower
There he
left
is.
there. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's tough. It's tough to lay fiber, at least on an Indian reservation. You got one entity that can make the decision as opposed to, municipalities where you have rights of way and negotiations and easements and things like that. I could go on about that, but
Yeah, I could talk with you. The location I'm at is actually, their main job is vacuum excavation, and they're employed largely because of fiber optics and gas in the ground. So when they dig, they don't break them. But
right. Well, with Internet of Things and 5G and all these other technologies, there's just going to be more and more data generated, and where is it going to be stored? I'm in a nice place because people generate data every day, and it has to go somewhere. And there's copies of it everywhere, just so you know.
Thank you, Dominic.
Hey, no problem.
Dave Hesseroom. Did I do that right? Is it?
Yeah, you got it exactly right, Adam. Thank you. Apologies for the tech problems and my being late this morning. I actually just hung my iPad on top of my iMac because I couldn't get the iMac to work because I gave away my work computer to my daughter to go to school this morning.
Right. It's like all these different levels.
It's crazy, this world we live in. Anyway, I'm Dave Hesseroon. I'm the founder and CEO of High Country Air Service. We provide contract pilot and aircraft management services to private business owners and citizens who have their own airplanes and want to travel privately. If you guys were on 1 Million Cups this week on Wednesday, I gave a detailed origin story, if you will. For those of you who weren't on there, I'm a 24-year Air Force veteran, retired in 2016, moved from Clovis, New Mexico to Albuquerque. And after a 2-year stint at Honeywell, running the flight test hangar at the Sunport, I started my own business here in 2018. And I just realized yesterday that I think next week is like our 2-year anniversary. So kind of cool.
That is. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
Anniversary of the business, right?
Yes, the business. Yeah. September will be like my 16-year anniversary of being married.
Congratulations there too.
Thank you.
That's cool. Yeah. And something I almost posted, but I just now posted was like, oh, if you put your your details on here, I can pull up the website. But I didn't do that until now.
That's okay. I'll put it in there.
Yeah, because that'd be cool to show everyone else too. Yeah, I know that Lisa would like to wait until her website is updated before that's shown, because it's a little archaic at the moment. But that's not but she's up to date with her services. So to clarify.
Yeah, we're accountants, not web designers.
Yeah.
I can make the same caveat for me too. I'm just a caveman pilot, not a web designer either. But nevertheless, Adam, there's my my link to my webpage in the chat.
Strategic Global Group. Oh no,
it's right above that.
Okay, here we go.
That's me.
And bring it up here. Great. High Country Air Service, professional. Isn't this a great view? This is this the Caldera?
No, not quite, but it is New Mexico. So that's northern New Mexico, on our way up towards the Colorado border. I teach a mountain flying course. I'm actually also the coordinator for the New Mexico Pilots Association's mountain flying clinic that we hold every year. And I teach in that clinic, and then I also, teach in the air for people, oftentimes we call them flatlanders who come out to New Mexico or, out west, and they want to learn how to fly in the mountains, which is a little different from, say flying in Kansas or on the East Coast. So anyway, I teach in that class, and that's where a lot of the pictures come from. Although the one on the left there, yeah, we don't have a beach like that. That's actual Mexico, not New Mexico.
That's great. Yeah. So the mountain stuff, it's kind of just like a lot of people forget about the infrastructure underneath the ground, which I was just talking to the guy here, is like people forget like there's different layers under there. We forget that we actually are surrounded by something. And move your hands like this, that's not nothing. You feel something, and it changes densities depending on where, so many different things. And a plane has to rely on the density.
Absolutely. Yeah, density altitude is something we talk about a lot in the course and has a huge impact on the airplane's performance and on people's performance. Anyone who's an athlete will tell you that exercising here in New Mexico is harder than other places because of the higher elevation, and the same is true for airplanes.
Cool. All right, so back to the questions that we started with. So the survey says, when you guys signed up for this, some of you answered the question. Some people didn't, but just fine. It was just to prepare your brain. But so the answer, some people said of like why you measure your ROI or how you measure your ROI is through customer satisfaction, calculate your costs versus your revenue, to divide the total benefit by the total investment. That's another way to do it. As a percentage of funds invested. And then also you could do it by long-term sustainability, to think about that. And we account for it in various ways. So that's a good catch-all answer, that last one. But it's true. Like, there are lots of ways that we think about ROI. So I'm going to put that question out to you guys. How do you, you can use one of these, or you can expand on how do you measure ROI? And I'm gonna prep it a little bit by talking a little bit, because I like to talk. But after I close this thing, stop share. There we go. That's what I want. Okay. So when I measure ROI, like the whole reason that I'm doing this is Sparks Flow, because I like the flow, right? So I measure if people before I had them are not experiencing just more proficiency in their time, like their productivity, but if they're actually enjoying the time more. Because we only have so much time on this planet, and time is more important than money. But I do want people to earn more, but I also want them to make sure they're enjoying that time. So those are some things I measure, and that's more of on a Likert scale sort of thing, or just asking them, how did you feel before? How do you feel after? So it's not the direct like here's a measurement from one to the other. But that's one of the big ways that I measure, is I just kind of get feedback. It's a lot of anecdotal at this point, but I'm trying to work on a way to measure it more, because you can scale flow on a chart of like, is it your challenges, are you getting challenged the right amount as opposed to too much where it's anxiety, or too little where it's, what is that? Boredom. Yeah. So that's one way that I measure the ROI that I provide my folks. So who else wants to pipe up about how they measure ROI? So Alan, yeah, I'm pretty sure you've got something, some thoughts on this. So go for it.
Well, it made me think about during the dot-com run-up in the 80s. I had a lot of people show me their business plans. And there was one question that I usually asked and couldn't get an answer to. Can you show me in your plan where you can make $1 of profit? And the answer that I got usually was, well, you don't understand the new economy. And my response to that was, well, there are a lot of things I don't understand. I don't understand gravity, but if I throw an egg in the air, I'm going to have to step aside because it's going to come down.
And it's weaker in New Mexico.
Yeah. But my point is that there are, as you aptly described, there are many ways to describe the return on investment. Typically, it's just dollars. And I made the comment about sustainability. In our culture, we tend to look quarter by quarter. And,
So-
and
And
I
one of the ways,
tend to look much farther out because sometimes you have to lose money for a while to make money. And if you don't have that long-term vision, you won't get
Oh.
to it.
yeah. That's interesting because that's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to talk about like a triple bottom line. There's permaculture business people, some permaculture business people. They say, there's the bottom line, which is, you're talking about profit. And in the long term, and this is where I thought you were going, was then also the other thing is, so profit, people, and planet. The effect on those things is the way they're measuring how good their service is being affected.
But the core of my philosophy is through my experience. I was a bankruptcy attorney for 17 years. And
Wow.
before that, I was an insolvency consultant for about 20 years. And you understand that cash flow is the be all and end all because you have to have cash flow. So where does that come from? It comes from, I saved a whole bunch of money so I can sustain my business, or I'm making enough money to keep my business going.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of, it's a multifaceted thing, this ROI.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore any of the facets
Yeah.
because you can be so focused on profit that you forget an important thing you said. Are you enjoying this at all? Because if you hate it, what's the point?
Yeah.
You might as well go get a job somewhere and eliminate the headache. So I just see it as kind of a ball with lots of facets to it.
Yeah.
And all
And
of them have some importance.
And that's a good point too, because you want to keep an eye on them a little bit, but you can't keep an eye on all of them at the same time because
No.
so trying to figure that out is really important. By the way, welcome, Robert. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell a little bit about yourself and like your business and stuff, or you want to just listen in?
I think I'll just listen in at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I probably shouldn't have given that option, but I did, so I'm going to stick with it. Or glad to have you. Just feel free to butt in anytime. That's
Thank
the way
you.
I handle things.
Okay.
So I'm curious, do you guys, like, I don't currently have a way that I'm actually following, aside from like Google reviews, right? That's the only way that I've really been capturing any return on investment. I'm only a year and a half old as far as my company goes, so I'm working on a lot of these details, and I have this, high-minded idea, and I can kind of feel it because I've only had a few clients. I've had 8 clients so far, and with each of those clients, I can remember our situation, and I can know our things, and I can check back with them to get some feedback. But does anyone what are the methods everyone else uses to measure your ROI?
I think it depends on what you're actually going to measure. ROI can be measured on in a business, can be measured on just the project that you're doing within that business.
Yeah.
And so if you have a department that's developing or wants to develop a new product within a business, then you can do an ROI in that situation to see if it's worth going forward to actually develop that product. So that's one way to measure ROI. ROI can be a measure on equity, it can be a measure on assets, it can be a measure on the company. So I don't think it's any one thing. There's a lot of different things, and it depends what the product or the thing is that you want to measure ROI on. At the moment, for me, because I'm new in the area, I'm trying to get established with a few things. It's how many people are actually coming back to me that I'm reaching out to with the strategies that I'm trying to develop in New Mexico. And the more people come back to me or come back and guide me or give me some guidance, then that's my measure of ROI at this particular point in time. So I think it really depends on where you are, what you're doing, and how you measure whatever you're doing. Can't hear you again.
Okay, so I opened this up, and if you push spacebar, you can turn off mute. But if you're typing on something, it doesn't matter if you push spacebar. So I'm just trying to collect some of these ideas and organize them in a way that like makes sense to me too, and to other folks. And so far we've talked about how there's long-term versus short-term, because a lot of us go in debt when we start a business, or at least we put more in than we're getting out. And that's like a money thing, or for other folks. And then I talked about kind of more of a feeling, or like, you know, that the way you're perceiving the situation. And we talked about money. We've also said that there's multifaceted. So what's the like, what are some other facets? Or real quick, let me go on around and everybody tell me how you, if you are measuring ROI, and then how you're measuring it. And I can tell you what order to go in, or you can also just jump in.
Hey, Adam, this is Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, so, you know, I am reminded in this conversation of something I heard before, that you get more of what you measure. So if something's measurable, you're more likely to go back and get more of it. And that is neither good nor bad. It is. Yeah. And I think that's a reason why money is on that list, because it's easy to measure. Like we can all quantify dollars. Everybody knows what they're worth. And there's super simple systems for tracking it. Like I have QuickBooks, you know, for my business, and I can look in QuickBooks and see how I'm doing financially. But that doesn't get at all of the other facets of ROI. So the other facet that I think of is leads. And so I kind of get real-time feedback on how I'm doing with lead generation through email. So if I'm seeing more emails from people I haven't seen before, that tells me that whatever I was doing prior to that is generating more leads. Now we can have a whole debate about causation and whether it's just luck that I'm getting more emails that are lead worthy, but that's something that I look at. And, you know, just in the last few days, I've noticed I've gotten a few more emails, probably because I'm spending some more time, or I'm investing more time in some of these network activities, like what you're doing here and 1 Million Cups and Innovate Santa Fe. But so emails or leads are another way I measure ROI.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, because if people are coming back, then that means that they're actually gaining from what they're getting from you. So reply or, yeah, so like, I'll give an instance from my business, because I'm actually measuring that way too, and I forgot. Because of the 8 clients I've had, 6 of them have also been return clients. So that gave me like stamina. I was like, oh, and when I'm there, I can feel like I'm actually doing something helpful, right? And the fact that they also are showing it by hiring back for different projects. I don't like to do the same project again, because that means that I'm just doing a maid service. And my goal is to make them, and that would be another thing. If they were calling me back to reorganize something we've already organized, then I would have to like readjust, like, okay, is my ROI really what I want it to be? Or do I need to shift either my business or how I'm doing it, you know? But yeah, so 6 out of 8 returns through emails or some kind of contact. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that. So contacts, leads, that's what we're saying. Leads and even return leads. Cool. Thanks, Dave. Something else you mentioned, so I'm pausing for anyone, that you want to share my screen real quick with finding this, okay, is the Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, all this, they put a big thing into measuring like the ROI of teachers, right? And the reason I bring them up is not because I'm really excited about all the things they do, because I don't know much of what they did, but I do know there's a quote I hear of him where he pointed out, he's like, there's so much power in being able to measure, like you said, the return or to like lead people with what you measure. But he says it's also extremely destructive to take any measurement and turn it into a way of shaming anyone. And which is what many people, when they think about standardized tests, especially teachers in the US, and like comparing different things, like there was a teacher who, I know where I heard this. It was in a book by Brene Brown about Dare Greatly. It's a great book. I recommend it for everybody. But she's pointing this out, and she gave the example of a teacher who was a kindergarten teacher, and her bonuses were given out publicly to be announced publicly, and it was the lowest of all the ones on the list. But what wasn't said in that list is that it was the highest for a kindergarten teacher. And there's a whole nother level of stuff into that in itself. But just saying that when it was being presented, it wasn't even presented correctly. So the ROI for people investing their taxes into this teacher, was not done well, right? It's scary. So when you said the measuring isn't necessarily good or bad, but yeah, it does direct our thoughts. And sometimes we aim for easy as opposed to helpful. And that's a really good thing to bring up. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I saw a ton of that on active duty in the Air Force. So there were some things that were really easy to measure, and they're not always right. Like just because you can measure it doesn't mean that that is the metric that you should be pursuing.
Yeah, to that point, I worked for a company, I was in customer service, and the biggest metric they used to decide whether we were doing a good job was how many contacts we had. So they counted phone calls, letters, telexes. This was before faxes. What they didn't understand is that the people who were lauded because they had high numbers were very inefficient. So my best friend and I, we were always really low on that scale. But when someone called us, we took care of the problem. Or when they sent us a letter, we took care of the problem. For a lot of the people, they got a letter, they got a phone call, they got a telex, they got a follow-up telex, and they finally handled the problem. But through the metrics, people said, wow, they're doing a wonderful job. And so, measuring the wrong thing is something that I've seen more than I care to even think about.
Yeah.
Adam, this kind of reminds me of my wife's job. She works in healthcare, and one of the things that they measure there a ton is how many patients, just like Alan was saying, how many patients they see in a given time period. And they are actually rewarded for spending less time per patient. So it's totally a quantity over quality situation, because the systems reinforces, or the system is designed to reinforce the wrong things. Like that does not do anything for the quality of an individual patient's healthcare.
Yeah, that's great. There's another book I like, Pat Lencioni, who talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And one of his big solutions to those is a scoreboard, which is also measuring what you are. Because as you said, we focus on the things that we can, like, if we measure it, we reach for that kind of thing. You said it really well. I can't remember how you said it. But he points out that using the scoreboard is really helpful, but you got to make sure that it's useful stuff. I'm trying to remember what it was that
I think those last 2 comments from Alan and the guy from the Air Force reminded me of Dave. Sorry, Dave. Reminded me of an Einstein theory. There are things that you count, and there are things that are counted, and they're not the same thing.
If you remember back
Yes, good.
15 years or so to that huge explosion in the Bay Area, was a gas line. And it turned out that Pacific Gas and Electric used to give bonuses to inspectors who found the fewest problems. And you think about that for a second, and it makes no sense whatsoever. So if you're out there and you're supposed to find problems and you find a lot of problems, well, you get dinged for that. But if you just go have a cup of coffee and don't find any problems, well, you get rewarded. And of course, the ultimate cost that affects the ROI was the explosion killed a number of people. It destroyed about 25 homes and resulted in billions of dollars of costs. So, it was that short-sighted view of what you measure and what you think will affect your bottom line was nuts.
Hey, Alan, that kind of reminds me of a story from the book Nuts. I don't know how many people have heard of this book. It's about Southwest Airlines and their founder. And in that book, there's a story about how one of the executives at the company made a mistake. And I don't remember exactly what the mistake was, but it cost the company something like $200,000. So it's a fairly substantial mistake. And the executive went and fessed up, told the CEO, "Hey, I made this mistake. I completely understand if you want my resignation, I'll go and type it up now." And the boss famously responded, "Absolutely not. I do not want your resignation. I just paid $200,000 for you to learn that lesson. Now go get back to work."
Yeah.
So that is a perfect example of someone having the long-term view of, what can we get out of this? I don't know. That story just really stuck with me.
That's cool.
I think history is full of stories like that. And on the other end of that spectrum, I remember I had a client, Beatrice Foods, part of the Beatrice conglomerate, and they had an edict to cut costs 10% across the board. And I thought that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, because they probably had functions that they could cut out 100%. They probably had functions that needed more money to be efficient, but they were looking at the bottom line only. And they thought that was the be all and end all measurement. And I've seen that a lot in corporate America.
Sean, I'm going to call you back in the conversation because I know that you work with people and you're about measuring diabetes stuff. So I was curious, how do you measure your ROI with your folks? And then Lisa, I want you to speak up here in just a moment.
Yeah,
Too.
can you hear me? Make sure I'm. So for that business, I've been doing, like everybody said, the most simple thing to point to is just the numbers. Like, okay, how much have I spent on maybe things like a website or other marketing materials, which has been pretty low. And then just comparing that to, okay, how many clients have I brought in? And it's easy to compare those numbers. So yeah, it can look, you can easily be positive in this area, but then again, it can come down to cash flow. Like if you're not having enough clients, then you're just not going to be profitable. So now it's kind of like Dave is talking about, looking at, okay, what do you need to do for lead generation and how do you focus on that? So I think looking at the most important things are going to have the biggest impact has been something that I'm learning is, okay, how worth it is it to spend hours trying to get your website and even Facebook page perfect and maybe some other tedious tasks? How much return on your investment of time is that can actually get you? Because there might be a lot of tasks that just aren't worth it to spend hours on, or maybe you could have somebody else do. Like for my merchant apparel company, I was designing my own logos for some of the apparel, but that takes forever. I'm trying to learn this program.
And now I just found a website where I can hire somebody to do it for me. I pay a small fee, and it's way better because they're better at it, and I can just have them help me out with that. So so to bring that all back, I guess, just to summarize, just figuring out, okay, what are the things that are actually going to move the needle that I can focus on? Because you can feel like you're super busy and doing a lot of work, but maybe it's like trying to make sure your font is correct in your website, which people don't really care about.
That's great. I'm going to push a little further. So with your diabetes folks, how do you know that you're returning? How do you know that they're getting good ROI? What's something that you've decided to focus on to know that you're doing good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so as far as results that we look at, we track weight loss. We track their blood sugar, although I'm not providing advice. I'm merely reflecting general knowledge because I'm not acting as a pharmacist or a healthcare provider. I'm working with their provider, again, just for legality's sake. But so blood sugar, weight loss is huge. And then we do things like before and after pictures of course, their body or their kitchen. What did their kitchen look like? Because if your kitchen was a mess and you weren't using it, if you were using it solely as a storage space, you know, maybe that will change after the 8 weeks you're with me, and that's something to be proud of. Is your fridge full of frozen foods, junk food, sodas, sports drinks, whatever? And then 8 weeks later, what does that look like? So I'll actually have people take pictures of their environment. And then also cooking skills is something else that we focus on. That's harder to measure, but subjectively, my client that I'm finishing up with now has just talked about how important that has been for him. So
that's great. So there's those are good things. I want to hear from Lisa, Dominic, and Robert, and I have about a little bit of time left, and I'm going to talk about events. So about Lisa, if you could just briefly tell me, how do you measure ROI?
Briefly?
Yeah.
I mean, my God, there's so many different things that we measure ROI for,
just
like
pick one then.
And for our clients. And there's so again, it goes back to what are we measuring first, because that's going to determine how we measure the ROI, because everything is different. You know, the way that, you know, maybe we help our clients measure the ROI on their internal training programs versus external training programs is going to be a lot different than how we measure ROI on advertising. So it's, you know, I will say that two key things across the board are, especially since most of the business owners that we work with, regardless of whether they're in their first year or their 15th year or even longer, a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them have never run a business before. So the first thing is to kind of get their mindset into the whole investment idea, because when you're working for someone else, when you're working you're in the military, you belong to someone else, or in the corporate world, you know, where you just kind of have to, I mean, you may have a little bit more creativity, a little bit more availability to be creative than you do in the military, because in the military, you're never allowed to be creative. So getting people to think about the things that they do, business owners to think about the things that they do as investments, is one of the first things, one of the first pieces of education when it comes to measuring ROI, because first you have to get on the idea that what's an investment, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's your creativity. So that's the first thing. The second thing is once we're on the same page, so to speak, about what the investment is, then you have to find a baseline for when it's not monetary. You know, obviously return on investment monetary, we have all kinds of calculations for that. But if we're talking about, like again, internal versus external training strategies, then maybe, that's going to be something where, you kind of have to create, like, what are we comparing it to? We have to have a starting point. And I guess, even monetarily, but the starting point then is how much money you invested. So that's kind of its own baseline. But I would say those are the two most important things, regardless of what exactly it is that you're measuring. But at that point, what you're measuring is going to determine your process for it.
Thank you. That's really cool, because it was to think about, like, I can come up with my own, right? But it's really cool is if I can know that I can see that I'm passing on the same ROI focus to my client or to whoever I'm providing the product for. Dominic, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you you can name one or a number of ways that you've measured ROI?
Well, I got to drop at the hour because I got another call here. But one of the things I usually think when I'm investing, again, it's mentioned before on multiple dimensions, but I usually think about it in either money, time, effort, what kind of goes into that, and then impact. A lot of what I do, I try and tend to, because I spend so much time becoming an expert in trying things, I usually put out content in either video or audio form or presentation form to help those individuals that either naturally come across it by organic search or are part of a larger education effort. But it really is the impact in the sense of how I manage things or measure return on investment is, I'll spend several weeks learning something and then distill that down to a number of points, and I produce an asset, intellectual property asset, and then it gets deployed, and I usually track who's consuming that, internal to the company and sometimes external to the company. But that's just kind of one measure that I personally use in some of the things of, okay, well, I'm going to spend time doing this. How can I leverage and help people be more efficient? Because I think one of the things that, we all have each individually our lessons learned in our life and our nuggets of knowledge that definitely could help shortcut somebody else. But, if part of that's experiential learning, then maybe it's not so much of a shortcut. But I guess a lot of what I measure is impact. How do I help save other people time, effort, or energy? And, if I help them save money, I don't see any of it. But that's kind of how I measure things, is in the sense that there's a lot of different inputs and there's a lot of different outputs, and there's also unintended consequences as well, which could be good or bad.
Thank you. Yeah, that's cool. So if people need to drop off, that's fine. I want to ask Robert here, but
We'll see you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Dominic.
Bye.
Robert, do you have any way that you measure ROI? Are you with us?
Did you call out me, Robert?
I did.
All right. Well, I did join a little late, but I did hear people talking about the the return on investment and some things that are measured and some things that you can't measure or are measured other than monetary. But I'm starting out as a nonprofit, so I'll have to pick it up next time and join in and maybe contribute a little more then.
Yeah. So you're doing a nonprofit. Do you mind mentioning what the nonprofit is?
It's just I'm doing blogging, writing.
Yeah.
So
maybe you measure ROI in the number of times your blog gets search results, right? Is found in search results.
Right. I haven't had any right now, to be honest with you, but I'm building up a catalog. So
That's cool.
That's good. Yeah.
And then you're feeling that you like what you're doing too. It's also important. Thank you, Robert. Yeah,
Yes, you're
I'd love to
welcome.
talk more about that when you come in. And don't feel bad
Okay.
about coming in late. There's people that come in late, people that leave early, and that's just fine. As long as we get to kind of talk with you a little bit, I'm happy.
All right. I appreciate it.
There's some events coming up. Always Wednesday, 1 Million Cups. You can find that at 1mcabq.org. And most of you know that about that one. But then there's also Co-Founder Network. This is a really bizarre name. Like it's kind of a mouthful. And are you still seeing this screen, or when I clicked on that, did it disappear?
Yes.
What? You
We
see
lost it.
Oh, you lost it? Okay, I will find it in my sharing. Okay, here we are. So it's on a cool platform called Remo. And this is done by Activate New Mexico. And the reason I think it's so cool, this particular platform, is because you can interact and make connections. Network sometimes has a bad connotation to it, but you can make connections with other people and talk with them by moving around a visual table or a visual conference room. So I can make breakout rooms with Zoom, which is what we do on 1 Million Cups after we have the speaker. And so in the breakout rooms, you have smaller groups, kind of like what we have here, where you get to discuss with people more on an intimate level. But the cool thing is, but you don't really have the power to move from one room to another without talking to, if you happen to have the main host in your room, or you go back to the main room. It's a lot of work to move from room to room. In Remo, which is what Activate New Mexico is using for this activity, you get to move around from one table image to another table. And then if you go to that table, that room, anyone at that table will pop up with you here. And you can leave whenever you want. You can come in whenever you want. It's the closest I've seen so far to actual interactions in a room. So it's kind of cool. It's a little bit some people don't like to learn new things, but since so much is online right now, it's one of the coolest tools to use. So I give them props for that. Let me switch back to my presentation there. And there was one more. Oh, there is B2B, which is business to business, which is being done by, can I find it here? Where'd my presentation go? Oh, well, I guess I'll just talk about it. Or I can look it up here. So it's Exhibit is a local company that does a lot of branding and other like advertising things. So you can look that up in order to find this. And I'm gonna find something that I can, okay. So I'm gonna open it up because I wanna remember that. So Exhibit, I don't know, I'm not spelling this right. B2B. There we are. And they're going online this time. So it's gonna be virtual. And I'm not sure how they're gonna do it, but this is an event coming up as well that I encourage you guys to go to. I don't know what the entrance fee is. The other ones I mentioned are free. So those are the events that we've got going on.
Hey, Adam, this is Dave. I'll throw in a
yes, please.
Second for the B2B event. We're a sponsor of that event, and we'll have a table there. So if you want to come in and learn more about what we do or what some of the other businesses in Albuquerque do, please join us. Just as an aside, shameless plug for Exhibit, they made these shirts.
Great.
We get our
Well,
shirts
good.
done there, and business cards and whatnot.
We're plug friendly as long as you're not rude.
Cool.
So, because I mean, the whole thing is we're wanting to provide something for other people, and we think we have something to offer. That's why we want to have return on give people a return on their investment. So I'm all about you saying what people have to offer. That's great, especially because you're giving it to them. All right, so that's that. I've got, then I got to do my closing screen. Just to be, one of the big things are, oh, next week is not ROI. Next week is another topic. I don't remember what it is. And so I close out. One of the things I found is consistency. If I can be consistent, apparently that draws people in. And so I'm consistently learning new things is what I apparently been best at during this time. So I hope it sparks return on investment for you for your time here, and joyfully organize your daily business and keep the sparks flowing. And in the edit, that's where I would end it. So that's that. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. This is great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Too.
I look forward to showing up in the future, Robert.
Thank you. We'll see you again.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Me too. Bye-bye.
Bye.